See much of you later. Morning. Yeah, well, glad to have you. We're still doing it.
Hey, what's up, man? How you? I think Andrea. I said Andrea did a great thing. She knew it was gonna be for a minute. Glad she gave us some.
Reggie.
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing?
Hey, Chuck. I'm sorry. Hey,
What'd you say?
hey, is Chuck gonna be in today?
No.
You share? Amen, please. Thanks. Gene, I think it's supposed to be. You know, we got two cases, so you know what you're gonna be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're good. Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 2018 City of Columbia Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I'm Gene Dinkins Jr., Vice Chairman of the Board, and I'll be serving as Chairman for today's meeting. At this point, I'd like to introduce the other members of the Board. Josh Speed to my far left, followed by Reggie McKnight, Jenna Stevens, and George Schaefer. I'd also like to introduce the staff that assist the Board. We've got Rachel Bailey, Zoning Administrator, Hope Hasty, Deputy Zoning Administrator, and Andrea Wolf, Land Use Board Coordinator. The Board is charged with hearing applications for special exceptions, variances, and administrative appeals. All testimony is recorded for the record, and anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn in and come to the podium to speak. No testimony can be taken from the floor. When you come to the podium, please state your name and please speak clearly into the microphone because this meeting is being recorded. Applicants with cases before the Board are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the Board or staff regarding the case. Any member of the public may address the Board in intervals of 3 minutes or 5 minutes if by a spokesman for an established body or group of 3 or more. The applicant then has 5 minutes for rebuttal. The Board reserves the right to amend these limits on a case-by-case basis. Those of you who plan to speak must be sworn. If you are here as an applicant or here to speak in any case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Okay. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Bailey.
Good morning. So I do want to make one announcement before we get going. Item number 9 on the agenda, case 2018-0101 for 3624 Rosewood Drive, a special exception to construct a wireless communication facility, a cell tower. That has been deferred. It'll not be discussed on the agenda today. The consent agenda is used by the Board to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the Board or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed and considered during the regular agenda. The Board then approves the remaining consent agenda items. The first item on the consent agenda today is the approval of the October 9th, 2018 minutes. Then we have item number 2, case 2018-0097 for 1950 Gervais Street. This is a variance to the amount of signage. Item number 3, case 2018-0098 for 1735 and 1745 Busby Street, variance to the buffer transition yard requirement. Item number 4, case 2018-0100 for 1601 Hayward Street. This is a variance to the fence height requirement. Item number 5, case 2018-0102 for 1425 Richland Street. This is a special exception to establish an inn. And item number 6, case 2018-0103 for 2300 Elmwood Avenue. This is a variance to the off-street parking requirement for a multifamily development. If anyone wants one of those cases removed and heard on the regular agenda, please let us know now.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the first item on the regular agenda is under old business. This is item number 7, case 2018-0093, 621 Whaley Street. This is a special exception to establish a convenience store. The applicant is welcome to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back before you. My name is Josh Boltonhouse. I'm the architect with Bobbitt Design Build. We're the design build contractor who's been hired to construct the store for our client. And so we're back before you today to address some concerns the board had from the previous meeting. If you guys could fast forward to, I put together a short presentation, kind of run through this. I'm sure you guys have reviewed it, but the items of concern from the previous meeting were, number 3 from the special exception application, proposed exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area, to include review of orientation and spacing of the building, as well as the number 6, proposed special exception is consistent with the character and intent of the underlying district as indicated in zoning district descriptions and applicable zoning overlays. And so what we did after our last meeting, we went and met with the neighborhood group and heard their concerns, and it was a good meeting to hear kind of what they had to say. And we took some of their things into advice, like kind of the orientation of the store. Previously, it was oriented kind of sideways to the Whaley Street. And but I felt leaving those meetings that their primary concern was the demolition of the existing house at 621 Whaley Street. And so the conversations kind of stalled there, whereas from our point of view, it's like we can't really move forward the project without demolishing it. They weren't really going to be very supportive of us demolishing it, so it kind of landed in a stalemate. It was a good conversation. It was productive kind of to hear some of their other concerns, but unfortunately, we weren't really able to hash that out. But what we did do was take a look at the orientation of the building and see if we could address it up. And then also, one of their concerns was we just want to kind of see a plan for what could be done with those parcels, because our owner owns obviously the house at 621 and the adjacent parcel, the other house there before you get to the, I forget what the other store is beside there, as well as the gas station property. So he owns a fairly wide range of parcels on Whaley Street. So flip to the next slide, please. What we took a look at is, pushing into the back corner of the property line and facing the street as well, and put parking in the front. So, one of the objections in one of the letters was, obstructing the view shed of the corridor. I think this helps do that. Granted, you don't have 2 houses you're looking at, but it doesn't really impact the streetscape like the previous design would have done. We're also proposing dressing up the existing building. One of the things they would probably prefer is if we tore down the existing store. Our client does not want to do that. I mean, he's, a single owner. He's not some large developer that has infinite funds to tear down existing structures he's paid a significant amount of money for. So he is open to improving the look of it. And granted, it's not to the level that we're proposing for the new store, but I think it is at least a middle ground in what we could be doing. And then one advantage of orienting the plan this way, you flip to the next slide, would be that it also has the ability to eventually expand it and have it more as a cohesive development versus just random store, single house, another store, gas station. And so in the overarching kind of Mills District plan that was adopted last year, one of the letters also say that this plan does not address that, or doesn't really go with it. One of the options, like just removing residential and placing it with commercial. But if you look at the zoning overlays in the Mill District plan, this is kind of their kind of brand master plan would be kind of a commercial area, not a residential district. So you have the Granby overlay, you have the Whaley Street overlay, the preservation districts. These houses, neither one falls in that. And as well as even in the most recent master plan completed, they talk about the architecture of the houses, talk about the gable fronts, the 2-story structures, and in all 3 of these different comprehensive guides, the architecture and description of the 2 houses that my client owns is not really described. And so one of the letters of opposition represents kind of a donut hole. And I guess we could probably flip to the next couple slides showing probably flip to the end. So this is kind of putting the 2 Granby District and the Whaley District overlays together. You can see that both the parcels that my client owns are both left out of that. And I think you can argue over why that is, but the fact is if we weren't planning to put a convenience store here, if we were to put any other use here, we wouldn't even be before the Board of Zoning Appeals. The house, we could have proposed a clothing shop and done exactly what I showed in this master plan, we wouldn't be here. It's only because my client wants to relocate his existing operation from his current store into an upgraded facility and then lease out his existing store for whatever potential use could come his way, is the reason we're here before the Board of Zoning Appeals. Obviously, I understand where people who are opposed this, these are 2 older homes, along Whaley Street. They are kind of sandwiched between two commercial uses. I mean, they're kind of out of place. I understand wanting to keep the historic character intact for this area. I mean, they do have, a brand new mill plan that was put together. And, I think the overarching plan for, Whaley Street would be kind of an activated urban but retail district. In the plan, they have lists of potential of uses for like stores they would like to see. And granted, a convenience store is not one of them, but I don't think my client should be denied just relocating his present business into a new building. But of the different uses that could be possibly relocated into an existing store, they list out coffee shop, bakery, boutique clothing store, curated vintage clothing shop, thrift store, costume shop, casual sandwich shop. So I mean, there's a litany of things that could go in an existing store that don't require a ton of space, that could add to the plan and kind of would, I feel, jive with the comprehensive mill district area plan that was put forth last year. And I think most of the opposition is really just coming for proposing tearing down those two houses. Which again, as I stated earlier, if it was anything but a convenience store, we wouldn't even be here. We'd be under construction by now. So with that, I think that concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, so just please restate. So originally, the new convenience store located on this property, it was oriented 90 degrees
Yes,
from this
sideways.
layout?
Yes.
So it was sort of facing the existing gas station, and you've hoped to appease the neighborhood somewhat by
Right, and
rotating it
even
toward-
from an architectural standpoint, I think this is a better solution. Obviously, at the front of the building's facing Whaley Street. That's what everybody would want. The only reason we had it sideways, that was the original request of the owner, kind of over my objection to it. So I think now, if he chooses to do something with that existing other house, he has a logical way he can expand it and provide areas that some of these other uses the Mill Village would want, can have an opportunity to move into. He has the potential to build about another 4,000 square feet, so that could house 2 or 3 other uses that I think would add to the character of the neighborhood. Okay. And accomplish the goals set forth in that district plan.
the proposed expansion area on one of the slides for future. Is that meant to extend into the other adjacent parcel that the owner owns?
Yes,
or
so
is
that would be demolishing that other house.
So
and then
one
kinda
further
Correct.
to the
I think
west,
it's 615 Whaley Street. Now, that's not in the scope of what we're proposing here.
Right.
It just kind of shows an idea that could very easily be done, because then, again, it's like one of the things is like, if you lose, one of the comments from our meeting was, if you lose one house, you're basically going to lose the other one, because now you really have a single house kind of on an island by itself. And so what we tried to do was like, should he decide he doesn't want to rent that house anymore, can we provide him with a logical way to expand what he's doing here that supports the character of the area? It's not just willy-nilly kind of half-cocked idea. You don't really want random thing going down. You want a comprehensive streetscape. And this was our best way of coming up with that.
I have a question about the existing store that you plan to lease out. Are there any plans for that? Do you have any idea what kind of building would want to?
Not at this time. Our owner's going to occupy it until the new store is operational. So that time he can vacate and then kind of explore what his options are for that store. But from an operational standpoint, there's no need for him to have 2 convenience stores within 20 feet of each other. So, the whole idea of this project was to kind of upgrade his existing facility and then present himself with options for his existing building.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, all right, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if anyone else would like to come forward either in support or against this application.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Joe Weeder. I'm with the Mill District Alliance and the Granby Mill Alliance. I think one of the most, during this whole process for us, the most interesting thing that was said by your chair, Chuck Sally, talking about the neighborhood in itself and how the most, in his years in the industry and on the board, he's never been more impressed with the cooperation, and collaboration of a developer and the community as right across the street from the Shiv Mart. And when you drive by it, you see that. You see it's a new campus. There's a lot going. There's a lot of potential for the community, for the development. Whereas Josh, the architect, did meet with us, there was a bit of a stalemate with the issue of the houses. You know, obviously, you're always trying to keep what you got when, you know, in a city that sometimes doesn't take those things into consideration when things aren't protected. But it stalemated at that point, you know, with houses. They did change their plan, but we do have some real issues. We have the existing building. You know, these guys, I mean, God knows what they're going to do, but you look at the existing building now, and for the past year, the fences behind it have been down in a ramshackle fashion, you know, with no attempt at all at even picking up the fallen fences. I mean, it just looks like who did it and ran. And so we really have real issues about the existing building, what their plans are for the existing building. You know, Kathy's Coffee, I mean, it's interesting. It's easy to do a quick tweak and, you know, in 3D and dress it up a little bit. But, you know, by the mere fact that they haven't done anything with their existing property to dress it up while the rest of the community has come up, we think that should be taken into consideration, that they need definite plans for what they're going to do with that building and how they're going to do it. Secondly, these aren't really architectural drawings. I guess they really don't have to present them since this isn't the DDRC. But these are kind of maybe drawings. This is what we'd like to do. So we really don't know what they're going to do. So it's kind of a mystery. But for those reasons, and for the fact that we're trying to do so much to bring the community, the Mill District, along, it would be nice to have a better idea as to what the real plans are for that corner of the neighborhood, for that our commercial area, for our retail area.
How long have you been a resident of the community?
Since 1976. I came here from New York City to teach film at the University of South Carolina and thought that this was a gem, historically. You know, social history wasn't very hip in those days. You know, people said, "Oh, you don't want to live there." But yes, I've been a property owner since the mid '80s.
Trying to think back, what was the structure in question, the house? What was it a couple of years ago or a few years ago? Was it single family or was it some sort of
They're right up until the owners of the Shiv Mart bought the properties. They were rental properties, single family rental properties, mostly students, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My name's Vi Henley. I've lived in the Olympia community since 1983. I am representing the Mill District Alliance. We stand in opposition to the proposed special exception. Unfortunately, our letter did not get to you because of a technical glitch. I have sent it on. That's okay. No worries. So I'll try to highlight that letter as best I can. We are opposed to the buildings being demolished. And if this were to move forward, we would ask that the owners be responsible for moving them to properties that are available for them to move to. Relatively close, so it wouldn't cost a great deal of money in the greater scheme of things. You know, the drawings that indicate the old building and covered pumps remaining is of great concern to us. Just a few months ago, these owners were before you to add a liquor store. Their current business model is your typical convenience store with a high propensity to sell alcohol in general. We as a community are in real need of a grocery store-oriented convenience option. Within a 1.2-mile radius of our neighborhood, we have 12 convenience stores. So it's not as if we need a larger convenience store that sells snacks, beer, wine, and gasoline. We have plenty of those. As a matter of fact, one is only 4 blocks from the Shiv Mart. Kathy's Coffee, you know, this reuse of the building. I dare say there are very few boutique stores that would want to have their building right in front of gas pumps. I mean, it's a mere just couple steps to the gas pumps. So
What is Kathy's Coffee?
that would be the reuse of the old building. It was just pictorially represented, but the old building is in such location to the gas station, gas pumps, that it would be difficult to convince a boutique store to move in, you know, right in front of gas pumps and such. And so we're concerned about the future use, given their previous applications. Let's see. In terms of pedestrian safety, you know, it's right across from the Granby, Olympia, and Mill apartments. And the propensity for young people to jaywalk would be greatly heightened with that positioning. And so we have concerns that, you know, somehow the traffic would have to be addressed, pedestrian as well as vehicular. Good neighbor plan. As Joe was stating earlier, they don't really maintain their green spaces or the boundary fences, which are down and look quite bad, to be honest with you. So we question the good neighbor landscaping. We love the idea that it's landscaped. Would ask that if this goes forward, that the mature trees be preserved. And also, it was concerning that we didn't have conversation with the owner. He sent his architects. So we really haven't been able to establish a conversation with the owner per se. He also owns more than just one store. I believe I was able to find 2 convenience stores that he owns in the greater Columbia area. And if you look at the Shiv Mart model, it looks nothing like this. And so because there are no design requirements, we do have concern that this would not be a plan that would work well with the current movement in the Capital City Mill District. So with that, we appreciate your consideration to deny this special exception. Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
I have a question, Ms. Henley. Have you identified any areas or any parcels where the houses could be moved?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and Joseph could speak to that.
Well, please approach.
Any other questions?
Ballpark
for
idea
me?
how much that would cost?
No? Good.
I spoke to the owner, and the reason why I went to talk to her is I knew they owned 2 parcels, one next to, they have a home on Church Street. And the ideal situation is these houses wouldn't even have to be moved out onto Whaley Street. They could be moved to the back of the lot, across the perimeter road of the Pacific Mills, Pacific Park baseball field, and then enter Denmark Street right there. And the first lot would be right there between 2 homes on Denmark, and then right around the corner on Church Street. And the interesting thing is they moved a house into the neighborhood before we had architectural conservation status, and that was was non-contributing. So they have a non-contributing house already. So they would be interested in filling their 2 vacant lots with those homes if these houses were moved for them. I think the actual cost of the moving of the houses, according to the owner, she moved a house, a single-story house from 378 about 6 or 7 years ago, and paid about $12,000 to move that one house, a great distance. I don't know what the actual cost would be, but I am sure, judging from what I've gleaned and what it costs to demolish and haul a house away, it would be less expensive for them to move these homes into the neighborhood and available lots than it would for them to demolish them and tear them away. And I would ask you to consider, on approving their exception, that they move these homes into these 2 lots in the neighborhood. Consider.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but certainly not sure that we could require the applicant to do anything like that.
We can hope.
But seems like a good deal of the concern certainly is these existing dwellings. So let me just ask you then, if the applicant was agreeable to doing something like that, what would the mill's position be on their request?
Well, we'd still like to talk to him again about the existing building and what their plans are for maintaining the rest of their property. But other than that, we'd be more willing to we'd invite them into the neighborhood if they were willing to move those homes.
And did you all discuss that in your meeting with them?
No, it was never discussed. I think the plan was to, hold firm on keeping the two homes where they were, and then see what they came up with.
Okay.
Thank you.
If the board will allow it, I'd like to just clarify
Please.
a few things. To touch on first, I know the applicant had discussed potential uses to come into the existing building once the convenience store moves over. The properties are within the planned development district. It's not really a design overlay. It doesn't pull in DDRC, but it does certain uses that might be permitted outright in the base zoning district, that M1. Even though it's permitted in the M1, it's a special exception within the PD. So retail, restaurants, most uses that could come in, or a great deal of uses, would require further board review. So it would be discussed at a future meeting. So I did want to throw that out there. I also wanted to touch on the Mill District Plan. It is not a regulatory device, so it kind of touches base with our future land use, and I had provided to you all in your binder, it's in the UCAC1, which is the Neighborhood Activity Center. So that's what it's explained in. There is kind of a donut hole in that district plan, which these parcels do fall in. It is surrounded by different conservation and protection areas, but these parcels that we're discussing today are outside of any overlay or anything that would require a demolition review prior to receiving a demolition permit. So I just wanted to clear that up. I know it's been discussed at last meeting and this meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak either in favor or against? Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Melissa Ligon. I live at 412 Florida Street in the Olympia neighborhood. I am here in opposition to this proposal. And I would like to, well, first of all, I'd like to just point out that the new proposed convenience store is almost triple the size of the existing one. The existing one, is what it is, and it's been there. But it's, it's proportionally sized for the lot that it's on. And to expand this by almost 3 times is just, to me, seems like it just not a good fit. I would like to read to you a letter from Ryan Nevius. I think it's probably in your packet, but I'd like to read it as a matter of record. And this is her speaking, Ryan Nevius. I'm a property owner in Granby Historic District, and I was the executive director of Sustainable Midlands that proposed the joint city-county planning done for the Capital City Mill District. This plan, entitled the Capital Mill District Area and Corridor Plan, found online at imaginemilldistrict.com, was voted on and accepted by both city and county councils. I'm opposed to the request for a zoning exception to expand the Shiv Mart located next to 701 Whaley and across from the Granby and Olympia Mills site for the following reasons. Number 1, the design and use does not conform to the aforementioned plan. The block where the proposed development is located is one of the most traffic congested areas in the city. Adding new retail will complicate an already difficult traffic problem. The proposed development will change the character of the Pacific Park, a City of Columbia park located directly behind the property. The proposed development will reduce the number of private residences directly opposite of one of the plan goals to increase residential. The existing gas station does not fit into the character of the Mill District, and the maybe plans show that they do not grasp the concepts of what we're looking for in the Mill District. It is not an approved use in the zoning. 2 months ago, I'm sorry, I'm not naming the numbers, we're up to number 7. 7, 2 months ago, the neighborhoods appeared before BOZA to protest the current owner trying to obtain a special exception to establish a liquor store. The neighborhood does not need or want a liquor store. Continuing on, the historic neighborhoods of Granby, Olympia, and Whaley, along with the district businesses housed in historic structures such as 701 Whaley and the Mills Apartments, have worked diligently to keep the quality and character of the neighborhood. The proposed parcels are in a donut hole of the district, so unlike so much of the rest of the neighborhood, have no design reviews. This gives us concerns about the final quality and appearance of the new buildings. While the Mills and 701 Whaley must have design reviews, the proposed property across the street from both of these does not. This donut hole in design review should not exist, but it does. This is a historic neighborhood's view shed. Can I have one more second? Please uphold our work to preserve and develop a cohesive mill district and support the efforts of placemaking and good urban design. Thank you for your consideration. I believe we all want good, long-term quality development that enhances the mill district for future generations. Sincerely, Ryan Nevius. And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Hey, Richard Burtz. First want to start off by saying that none of us enjoy having to come up and protest a neighbor's expansion. Want to thank both Josh and John for sitting down with us once together, and then Josh and I had a coffee on another occasion to try to find some cohesiveness in the plan. One of my biggest concerns are the demolition of the houses. They were not there in 1919. They were occupied by 1930. One of the occupants was actually Robert Ebert, who went on to buy all the housing from the Mills in 1940. Also, the property was occupied by the director of what was the community center at 701. So it does have some property. That fabric is important. If you do see that this expansion should go through, then obviously we do want to make sure that the houses get moved, if at all possible, to another site in the neighborhood. I'm probably most concerned about the, along with the demolition, if that happens, but the use of the existing convenience store, and whether or not that ends up just being a storage shed and or unoccupied, and we really just don't know. And I think that would be a shame to have a prominent corner in the neighborhood that ends up just being storage for overflow or excess for the new convenience store built next door. So those are some of my concerns. As you know, across the street, not 150 yards from here, I'm putting a roof back on and reanimating properties that have not been in service for 50 years, 60 years, however long it's been since the roof collapsed. And all of you know me very well, I just believe that this is a very special neighborhood, and we should do everything that we can to protect it going forward. Thank you.
When you had your meeting with the architect, did you all discuss the existing store and what would happen?
We did, and they have no planned use for it. Josh will correct me if I'm wrong, but
They'll have their chance.
We don't have. There is no certainty of. The neighborhood group felt like that if that store was torn down and landscaped and more parking was provided for the next door unit, that would create a little bit more certainty. We wish that there was. I had to go through DDRC review. Josh from PMC and the Mills across the street had to do PMC review. DDRC review. We wish that there was a staff level review for this project, since it's our view shed. But it is concerning what could go back into and how it's positioned. It's a corner. convenience stores that you see are located on a corner. There could be a reason for that, but
Okay. All right, thank you.
thanks.
I'm Josh Harding. I'm with PMC Property Group with the mills across the street. I don't have a whole lot to say, just here in support of the neighborhood. And I'll say the process that we had ultimately with all of our developments in the neighborhood was truly a pleasure. And I believe that overall, our success is a huge factor, with our relationship. So I certainly appreciate our neighborhood. And I think you'd agree that we've been here for a long time. We're and certainly a part of the area, and certainly I hear their concerns, and we tend to agree with all they have to say. So that's all.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Adam Nagler, and I'm from the Granby Mill District. I don't want to waste a lot of your time since I'm just going to echo what they've been saying. We have concerns with the aesthetics of the building, and we have concerns with the loss of the historic homes, and we do have concerns with safety too, with the students running across the street. This is basically their place to get their beer from, so they're just running across the street in the middle of the intersection. It's not so bad at the end where the corner is and they have crosswalks, but if you slide it on down to the middle, they're not going to walk extra. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
In our meeting with the group, we actually did discuss moving the houses, and we're not opposed to that. I mean, it costs money to tear something down, it costs money to move it. So that's one of the early compromises we did put forth, and Bob Guild kind of told us, essentially moving something to somewhere else is, in lack of a better term, like corrupting history. But we were not opposed to it. Like we even asked them, so you can find a spot for us to move it to. We certainly considered that. So we are not gung-ho set on just demolishing the houses. If there's an easy way to move them, we are not opposed to that at all. And as far as the drawings put forth, I am an architect, and I did draw these drawings, and this is basically what we send in for permitting to the city, just turned 90 degrees. So, what you see is what we are proposing building. We're not going to throw up a metal building and call it a day. I know there's some concern with, there is no DDRC review, but I've submitted plenty of projects that have been under DDRC review. I don't see where DDRC would object to what we're proposing. It's a brick facade, detailed out, I think ideally proportioned. There's some thought given to the character and aesthetic of the design. So, short of just really nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking, I think this is probably one of the better looking, proposals for a building that could be done where there is no, actual design requirements from the city. So that's,
Well, regarding the plans, I did hear that discussed, and personally, I'm okay with that. You're still trying to figure out whether or not you'll be allowed to do this, so
right.
I don't fault you there. I think that's fine. I do have one question. I heard this from a few of the people opposed, and basically, where was the owner of the property during all those discussions? I understand you were there and his lawyers.
Yeah,
but,
he could have been, it was actually our suggestion is to let us talk with the community group. This is sort of dealing with design and community relations as our wheelhouse. If he would have been, he probably would have sat and listened. We were just going to convey it back to him. We were just trying to get a sense of kind of what they wanted. And just from like an expediency and efficiency, I said, just kind of let me handle it. It wasn't that he's opposed to meeting with them at all, and he'd be here today. His mother's ill, and so he's dealing with those concerns currently. But I think, there is, the fence did fall down. We are planning on rebuilding all that. In fact, we kind of told them, let's kind of hold tight on doing anything because, with construction equipment, like you go and rebuild a new fence, spend $8,000, there's a good chance that it gets torn up during the construction process, you got to put it back. So just hold tight enough. Can he clean it up? Yeah, he probably should have. But again, he did tell us that the fence had fallen down. So let's hold tight, thinking that we would have been already kind of on underway with construction. So he is fully committed to dressing up the property. I think he's using this opportunity as a chance to kind of address everything with landscaping, fencing, to kind of alleviate the concerns that the neighborhood it has. It's just, you can bring up multiple, it's multiple stores, sure. I mean, margins on convenience stores. I don't know what he makes, but I mean, this is not some giant developer that can just willy-nilly do what he wants, because he has access to all kinds of capital. He's being very diligent and thorough and has bank financing, and he needs this to be approved before the financing goes. But I mean, it's kind of the plight of being a single business owner, or individual business owner in this case. And so, I mean, he's trying to do what he can. When we keep hearing about the development across the street, which is great in the collaboration, but that was essentially a greenfield site. I mean, yeah, you could have turned that building any different way and still accomplished the same goal. So yeah, it's super easy to collaborate with a fresh from the ground. It's like, oh yeah, you asked me to turn it 90 degrees and you can still get all your requirements. I mean, it's great to have that collaboration, get that input, but that's real easy versus trying to work with a very limited parcel, keep the existing building open, and then there's a little more complicating factors than just picking a fresh site, having a clean slate to work with. So, I mean, we're doing the best we can. We're trying to listen and address the concerns. We're willing to, move the houses we can't just go buy property and move them. We needed somewhere to move them to. So I'm glad to hear that they have found parcels for those to be relocated to, because we are certainly open to that.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have any questions for the applicant?
I have just one question. So there was discussion about, and not for you, but I don't think, there was some discussion about the existing building being converted into storage. If the owner wanted to decommission the existing use, which is a convenience store, and turn that building into a storage use, would they have to come before the board to get approval to do so?
It depends what kind of storage use there is. There's different categories. If it was used as their personal accessory use storage, we would look at it as an accessory use. But if it was used as general commercial storage, I would have to check on that to see if the PD, it would be permitted in the light industrial, the M1, but I would need to look to see if the actual planned development district on top of that would allow that outright. I'm thinking it wouldn't, because most uses end up coming in as special exception in that PD district.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward and speak either in favor or against this particular matter? Okay, at this point, I'd like to open it up for board discussion. Get some input from some of our other members. Thoughts?
I'll start. I have some concern that we're placing undue pressure on this applicant. That seems a little bit unreasonable. First, I want to say I'm an architect. I live in a historic neighborhood in the city, and so both personally and professionally, I have a bias toward reusing existing properties and adaptive reuse. Having said that, it concerns me that one of the primary concerns that we're hearing against this proposal is related to the existing house structures. It's my understanding that the property owner could demolish those homes without coming before the board. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it concerns me that we are considering something that they do not need our approval for, and that we're discussing things like moving the homes on this board, which we cannot require related to this particular application. So I think that's putting an undue burden on this particular applicant. I also empathize with the community. As I said, I live in a historic neighborhood. I live in Cottontown, and we deal with these types of things happening all the time as well. And so I empathize and I understand where the neighborhood's coming from. But if I'm reading this, the exact properties sort of are in a black hole or a donut hole, basically, relative to all of the Mill District area and corridor plans. Is that correct? So a lot of the concerns that are being expressed don't really apply to this particular property and property owner. Is that correct?
The properties are within the Mill District plan that was adopted, but that instrument alone is not regulatory. It doesn't create an overlay or any kind of protections. It looks at that future land use, which is that neighborhood activity corridor.
Okay. So, and it's just we left this meeting last time with the concerns being specifically related to items number 3 and 6, and I feel like that the applicant made a good faith effort to address both of those criteria. And personally, I believe that they've met the threshold for approval for this. That's just how I feel about the application.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm good.
Okay, well, good discussion today. George, I think I agree with you, although everything, we're trying to consider this from a bunch of different angles, but at the end of the day, it does boil down to the 8 specific criteria that we have to decide whether or not they've met in order to be granted the special exception. Heard some discussion from the applicant that if they were here today asking us for some sort of a retail store or something like that, well, they wouldn't even have to be here, and that is true. But this particular use, because of the potential for increased traffic and all the other things that go along with the convenience store, does require meeting with us, and they would have to meet the 8 specific criteria. I think they meet most of them, but it's my opinion. I'm not sure that they meet all of them. I think they did a good job meeting with the community again to try to address the concerns, but sometimes if it's not the appropriate location for it, no matter how hard you try, it may not fit. I'm personally concerned that the owner wasn't a part of the discussions. I appreciate the applicant's response, trying to describe why he was not, but I think that it would make the neighborhood more comfortable with a request like this, knowing that the owner, the person who's going to be there for forever, and not just the architect, was agreeable to meet with them. So that's a concern to me. I'm also concerned anytime we have one of these cases where everyone from the community that came out to speak today before you was against the proposed development. So that's a concern to me. So as I run through the specific criteria, I do not believe it meets number 3. Describe in what ways the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area. I think this is an old mill village. These are existing or at one time single-family dwellings, and I think adding an additional convenience store beside an existing gas station does not meet the character of the neighborhood. And I think for the same reasons it doesn't meet number 6. So I'm not sure, in my personal opinion, that we could pass this. Any thoughts from any other board members? Okay. All right. Well, at this time, I'd like to call for a motion. Ask for a motion. Okay. Well, hearing none, I'll be happy to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we deny the special exception to establish a convenience store on this particular property.
A second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Could we do hands? I
Yeah,
didn't hear
'cause I-
everyone
yeah.
say
Trying to
yes
get
or
you.
no.
Sounds good.
Who voted aye to the motion? 3. And who voted against? 2.
Thank you.
The final item on the agenda is item number 8, case 2018-0096. This is 5011 Monticello Road, a special exception to establish a laundromat. If the applicant is here, they're welcome to come forward.
Good morning. My name is Umesh Patel, and I think the laundromat and one of the barber shop next to it. It was closed for almost 12 years, and we tried to reopen it. And that's what we're applying for exception.
Okay. Are you familiar with the specific criteria that you would have to meet in order to be granted the special exception?
No. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, basically in your application. Do you have a copy of your application? Or
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. If you could, would you please run through the criteria? It should be 8 specific items. I'll be happy to ask the questions and just get your answers. If you want to.
You said number 8?
Well, let me know when you get to the particular section. Okay, so starting at the beginning, please describe in what ways the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular traffic or vehicular and pedestrian safety, and how adequate provisions are made in the proposed exception for parking and for loading and unloading.
The traffic is not heavy on that, and also there is an intersection. The lights are there, and there's two. There's two. One is on the Monticello Road. There's the one. I think there's two places you can go to the property. One is on Monticello Road. Driveways, yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's 2 driveways you can go in and out. Yep, and there's almost like 12 parking spots.
Understood. Okay. All right, describe in what ways the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on adjoining properties in terms of environmental factors such as noise, lights, glare, vibration, fumes, odors, obstruction of air, or light and litter.
I mean, it's a laundromat, so what we do is we're going to have some parking lights, and I mean, it's just we're going to close around 7:30 or 8 o'clock every day. So it's not going to be, it's not going to affect the noise or any kind of lights or anything like that.
Okay, understood. Describe in what ways the proposed special exception will not have a substantial adverse impact on the aesthetic character of the area, to include a review of the orientation and spacing of buildings.
It's already existing building, and also all the equipment's inside too. So we're just gonna, keep as it is, and then restart everything.
Okay. Describe the ways in which the proposed special exception will not have an adverse impact on public safety or create nuisance conditions detrimental to the public interest or conditions likely to result in increased law enforcement response.
We're gonna have a surveillance camera outside and inside, and we're gonna have one person all the time open to close. Yep.
Okay, good. Explain how the establishment of the proposed special exception does not create a concentration or proliferation of the same or similar types of special exception use, which concentration may be detrimental to the development or redevelopment of the area in which the special exception use is proposed to be developed.
There's one, the surrounding neighborhood has to do any kind of laundry. They have to drive like 3 miles away from there. So we'll be opening that place. It will be more convenient for them.
Certainly not proliferation. Explain how the proposed special exception is consistent with the character and intent of the underlying district as indicated in the zoning district description with any applicable zoning overlay district goals and requirements. Number 6.
It's a C2 zoning, and it's also, neighborhood commercial, and it's already existing laundromat. Okay.
Makes sense. Okay. The last couple, describe how the proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with the permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property.
Again, it was already existing laundromat, and it's vacant,
Okay. Okay, and the last one, explain in what ways the proposed special exception will not adversely affect the public interest.
Opening a laundromat will create a convenience for the surrounding community, and it will create a couple of jobs. Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Get those,
I have
get
two
those on the
questions.
record? Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patel, two quick questions. Where did you say the nearest laundromat was in relation to where yours is? Where you want to put yours? Where is the nearest laundromat?
It's on the I think Main Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Now, I think you said about 12 years ago it shut down. What was the reason for it shutting down?
I think the owner health condition got worsened, and he cannot maintain it.
Okay.
And I think his daughter, she wasn't here in town, so nobody can take care of that thing, and then it just closed down. Yeah.
Okay. One last thing. Where is the nearest? Because laundry. I have a wash and dryer in my house, but
Gotcha.
I can understand. When I was in college, I could definitely understand how it's very to have access to laundromat and laundry facilities is real. That's real good. What's the nearest neighborhood next to your location? Is there a neighborhood around it?
Yeah. There's a lot of surrounding community. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. The nearest neighborhood, I believe, was I forgot the name of it.
It's right behind it.
Okay.
We emailed them, and then
Okay,
just-
I can understand.
Yeah.
Understandable. All right.
I think it was Howard neighborhood or something like that.
It was Hyatt Park.
Hyatt, sorry, yeah, Hyatt Park, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, is there anyone else here to speak either in favor or against this proposed special exception?
I'm Deborah Stratton. I'm the realtor involved, and I have to say, obviously, I'm in favor of it. This building's been closed for 12 years. It's still fully equipped. The owner thought that they would be able to, their health would improve and they'd be able to reopen it, so they never really gave up on it. And so, unfortunately, now it's gone to the owner's estate as they passed, and so they're trying to sell it. This would be a great thing. I think the neighborhood waited for it to reopen. It's probably over 3.5 miles away for the next laundromat, and this will be it's kind of a slow part of the road, where there's not a lot of traffic and just housing. I think it'll be a great thing for the community. They already have one that they do over off of Leesburg Road, and it's clean and it's nice, and it's a place where you could safely go and do your laundry, which is, I think, important for every neighborhood to have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? All right, well, at this point, I'd like to open it up for board discussion. Any thoughts? Okay, well, seems fairly straightforward. Of course, the property was posted, and we didn't get anyone complaining about this. And I guess really the only reason why they're here is you have to, in this zoning district, seek a special exception to open a laundromat. So we heard the applicant run through the specific criteria. I think he met each one. So if there's no other discussion at this point, I would like to ask for a motion regarding this item.
Motion to approve.
Okay, got a motion?
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Opposed.
Okay. All right, well, motion passes. All right.
All right, there's no other business on the agenda. I hope you all have a lovely Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Let's get a motion to adjourn, please.
I move that we adjourn the November 13th Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
I second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much.